there, pilots. Welcome to another review video. In this kit review, we're going to be talking about the high-grade 2009 Gundam Unicorn mode. Now, this kit is a little dated, but not as bad as I would have thought considering the date that it was made. When discussing cleanup for this kit, because that's always the first point that we talk about, it was okay. There were definitely signs that it's a high grade. There were a couple problems with the Unicorn V-fin for sure. That was one of the big issues for sanding and time consuming. There were some other issues that were visible for seam lines, like there were some on the backpack. These little guys here. So there are definitely some seam lines on the top that would have been visible. But all in all, most of the seam lines were pretty manageable, even on some of the ones that were the legs. I'm not going to have pictures for those, because I took pictures of the ones that were like the most troublesome. Most of the troublesome seam lines are like with any other high grade type of kit, and it was usually with the weapons. The bazooka had a really bad one. I'm sure that even without the blow up, you still might be able to see some of the streak marks of the sanding and even some of the residual seam line that's there. I at least rounded it off so it won't be bad once it's painted, but it's still pretty bad. The beam sabers had some, but I was a little careful with that. I used a higher grit, and by higher grit I mean like 1500, just so that way there's no confusion, to clean that up so it wouldn't really misshape the beam sabers all that much. And then the other ones were really on parts that you couldn't see, so that was a good thing. There are probably a few that I'm kind of forgetting, but all in all, the seam lines were about average for a unicorn, or for a high grade kit for the Gundam Unicorn mode, which is good. Most of them could be easily hidden. I thought they were kind of bad at first, and then I realized, okay, all of this is pretty much going to be hidden. So make sure you look at your instructions, figure out which ones are going to be bad and which ones aren't. And that'll help a lot. For assembly, this kit went together pretty well. There were a few issues, I think, in terms of fit. Like some of the joints are a little loose. But really it's just this leg. And that's pretty much it. I mean, honestly, the rest of the joints here are pretty solid, so I'm not too worried about that. Which is crazy again for an older kit. For color separation, it's basically a mono white kit with some grays and blues. There were no issues with color separation. It's faithful to the kit. I can't really say a whole lot on that. Now stay tuned, and we'll go into looking at some of the more of the surface details in a bit here. Alright, now getting into some of these surface details of the kit. Now, as you can see with some of the lighting and manipulation of the lighting, there are a lot of panel lines on this kit by default. I always say the surface details are pretty faithful to the UC, or the Unicorn Gundam itself, especially in this mode, which is pretty awesome considering it's going to have a plethora of lines that you can panel line. Even down here, the forearm here, you can see a lot of good surface detail and a lot of separation of parts, which will be really, really good if you guys like panel lining or want to kind of up your game on the Unicorn itself. I would highly recommend panel lining. I just haven't gotten into it yet because I'm going to be customizing the kit, but I would highly recommend that if you're going to snap build the kit, to also take some time and do some panel lining on it. For the articulation of the kit. Now, this is where this kit kind of loses some points. So for rear leg articulation, that's about as good as you're going to get. It's not going to be anything crazy. But for articulation, you actually get a bit more than I expected because of the fact that it is still on a ball joint. It is not anything that really pivots. It's on a ball joint, and then it kind of has a swivel in the hip area to kind of help get some extra articulation, but you're not going to get a whole lot out of it. The skirts can move. I separated them as usual. The side skirts move up pretty far actually, but that's about as far as you're going to get. So you can get some pretty decent leg articulation, but this is actually stops here due to the ball joints, not because of anything that the waist joint is doing. So it's not too bad. It doesn't seem to get super loose when moving everything once you have it set, which is awesome. The torso just kind of has that motion. It has a little bit forward and backward articulation, but it's not anything anything of real note. The arms can swivel forward and back like so. There you go. And then the arms can raise like usual. So this joint actually raises, but also the arms themselves can raise to a pretty good angle. That's about as high as you're going to wind up getting for the kit. It's not bad, to be honest, for, again, a high grade, but to a high grade that has a lot of age to it. The head can rotate about the ball joint that it's on, and you still actually get some pretty good, decent back and forth head motion. Just due to the way that neck joint is sitting in there and articulated. So all in all, pretty good. I'm not really too concerned with that kind of articulation. I want to improve on the leg articulation, which is why I'm going to be customizing the kit. I'm going to be using the narrative C-packs, but we'll get more into that at the end of the video. For gimmicks, this bazooka right here can actually come apart, so that way it can go into a more storage-like mode, like so. And then it would just be racked back here. I just don't want to mess with it because this hand is a little, it's not a pain in the butt. It's what you want for a kit that's trying to have some more rigidity to it. So I actually like that fact. No, it doesn't. It's upside down. There we go. But there's also another magazine. There's another magazine here that you can also rack on the back for when it's kind of in storage mode or to show that there's a spare magazine. Now, the big issue with the gimmicks that I have a problem with is that I have two beam sabers in that bag, if you can kind of see, because they're supposed to sit in here. However, there's absolutely no type of locking mechanism included with that area. The beam sabers basically sit in there and you have to just use basic physics. So if it's not a tight enough fit, they're going to fall out, which they both did. Now you can either glue them in there, you can just kind of, once you have it standing in, you can kind of then put them in there or some other type of mechanism, or you can make your own with a PLA plate, and it should work just fine. But that is a major downside to this kit, I think. Again, it won't be major with my build, but it's still kind of a downer if you're trying to just build this kit right out of the box. For decals and color separation. Now, I wound up losing the stickers to this kit. Oh no, that's on me. But the color correction stickers are non-existent. The only stickers that they have are really for the visor up in here, and I believe the cameras for the bazooka. I think there's a rear camera like slot for that too, but it's nothing major at all. There's no color correction stickers, which I'm a fan of. And there's no real issues with the stickers themselves. Now, this is a positive for this. There are a plethora of decals to choose from. Now, you're going to have to look up probably real grade decals, but there are some Bondi decal or water slide decal sets that are for the Unicorn universe, and you can kind of take some of those, and I think they have one that actually outlines that these are for the Unicorn Gundam. And you can apply those as is. Again, you can get the real grade type of decals, and then you can actually have a whole bunch of decals on a high grade kit if you kind of just don't want to waste some money on a real grade for the Unicorn mode, and you just want a real, or just want a high grade because it's not going to be expanding, doing all the extra things that the real grade can do. That's definitely what I would consider a good option for that kit. All right. And now we're going to move on to the overall rating of the kit. and then we'll move on to the plans that I have for the kit. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back. All right. So now that we're back, we can kind of talk about the overall rating of this kit and what my overall thoughts are on the Unicorn mode high grade. So for cleanup, I would say it was about average. So I would give it about a 5 or 6 on the cleanup because it was a little troublesome, but nothing too crazy. Now for assembly, again, I thought it went together pretty well, but I would give it probably about an 8 because there were no real issues. The only issues that there really were is the fact that some of the joints were a little too tight when putting everything together. But other than that, it holds together like a charm, went together like a charm. I had no issues whatsoever, besides the beam sabers falling out of the backpack, but that is not so much an assembly or articulation problem. It is a design problem. For surface details, the kit, surface details are very good on the kit. I would say it's probably better than most typical high grades because of the way the Unicorn suit is designed, which is great. I think it is good to have high grade kits that actually have a lot of good surface detail because it helps move that grade along, and it's good for just displaying a kit that's a little more simplistic for a real grade variant that you're going to want to display with the psycho frame and all that. So I think it's actually a pretty good parallel, and it is a good quality high grade if you want to also pair it with the real grade or do some customization. Color separation, it's a 10 because it's faithful to the kit. So I'm just going to say that's a 10 because it is faithful to the Unicorn kit. There is, or a Unicorn mobile suit from the series. There's no issues whatsoever with color separation. For articulation, I'm going to give it about a 7. So due to the design of the kit, the articulation itself is limited, but I'm having no issues with the joints themselves, utilizing poly caps, some of the posing that you can do with it. The only real issue I have is the leg articulation, is that I don't feel like it's where it needs to be. I like the leg articulation of a Justa. However, it is definitely better than most high grades out there. So I would recommend this kit as being kind of a 7 because of it. It's definitely above average for a high grade, but it's not quite where I want it to be to get some real dynamic posing out of it. For gimmicks, I would say it's probably also about a 7. I don't feel like there's any issues with the gimmicks that are included because, again, it is a simple mobile suit. The only real thing that it loses points on, actually, is the fact that the beam tonfas don't deploy out all the way. I would have liked to see it kind of swing. Now, that can be done through some minor modification if you have a brass rod or something like that you can feed through there. And then all you need is some paint and it'll be good to go. For the kit decals. Now, the fact that there are so many decal options out there because there is a real grade variant, it's going to get a 10. Even Bandai consider the high grade variants with some of the issuance of the multi-use Unicorn decals, which is good. I like the fact that they're taking the time and making decals for high grades, even though it's separate and not included in the kit. It is at least an effort made by Bandai to provide decals for high grades, and I don't really think there's any problems, so this one gets a 10. Now, for overall rating, considering the cleanup, assembly, surface details, color separation, articulation, gimmicks, and the kit decals, I'm going to say that this kit is a 7. I know that there were some that I rated as a 10, but those were things that were kind of on the more minor side of the spectrum when it comes to the overall rating of the kit. The color separation is faithful, but it is basically a mono white mobile suit. So I'm going to have to say that overall, considering articulation, gimmicks, and cleanup of the kit, it is going to get a 7. As a matter of fact, no, I take that back. We'll get a 7.5. I'm going to give it some bonus points for the surface details because that is a major point for me. I will definitely give it some more points in that spectrum. So I will say that this kit overall gets a 7.5. If you guys think that it scored a little higher, or maybe it should score a little lower than that, let me know in the comments below. Now to get into the more fun part of these videos, I'm going to talk about my plans for customizing the kit. Now, yeah. I cannot find it right away, so I apologize for that. But now I'm going to be pairing it with the Narrative Gundam C-Packs and possibly the Jester for the shoulder area. I haven't decided yet, but I was originally going to use a Jesta to help kind of bring this up to the level that I wanted it. But the problem that I was kind of seeing when I paired it with the Jesta, because it did work, it actually did work, which was awesome. Because all you need to do essentially is take this out and replace it with the Jesta part where the legs plug in and all that, the waist. It would just require some modification to kind of make sure that it looked, that it fit into the Unicorn kit, but it actually would have worked. But I decided that I kind of want to use the Narrative C-Packs because there's more to it. There's more articulation with that kit. There is more resemblance to the Psycho frame. And the whole thing that I'm trying to do with this kit is make it like a stealth ninja type GM. Like, say they captured an Efreet Noct and kind of wanted to adapt it to a new mobile suit. And they chose the Unicorn style because they could do a pseudo or quasi Psycho Commu system internally with the frame to kind of propel it forward to where it's a more improved kit. Now, what I want to do with it is kind of only have it Psycho framed on the limbs and nowhere in the torso because it is supposed to be for striking and legitimately just moving with the legs quicker than usual. So that's what I'm going to do. It's going to require some modification, but I don't think it'll be anything strenuous from what I've seen from the instructions of the Narrative C-Packs and the way that the Unicorn's built already. So those are my plans for the kit. I'm definitely going to give it some swords and some other things to kind of make it more of a melee type GM. That's what I have for customization plans. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed this new kind of style that I'm trying to do, where I have a couple different cameras set up so that we can get a couple different angles and some nicer quality out of the camera. So without further ado, pilots, sortie out, hobby on. I hope to see you in the next video, and I hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you. See you next time. Hey pilots, did you like that kit that you just saw in this video? Are you thinking, maybe I should get that for myself? Well, then look no further than the Gundam Shoppers Network. At the Gundam Shoppers Network, you can find kits from 1/144 to perfect grade scale. And not only that, they also have other model kits that will suit your fancy no matter what your hobbying style is. They have Pokemon kits, they have 30-minute mission kits, they have kits left and right. And not only that, they also have a system in place where if they don't have the kit, they can direct you to a vendor that does. There is a community resources tab that has Gundam tutorials, Gundam tips and tricks, and preferred US and international retailers that have been thoroughly vetted through as to ensure that they are a legitimate vendor as well as a trusted vendor. Now, if you guys are looking to get a jump start on some of the other purchasers of these kits, then I highly recommend joining the GSN Discord. They have that link on their Facebook page. If you have a Facebook, just search up the Gundam Shoppers Network and it will take you to either their personal page or their own group. And there you have it. You'll be sorted for all your hobbies to come.